This is going to be the toughest video I've ever made. As I said in the previous video, Auburn has given me some of the greatest memories of my life from a football perspective, but it has given me some of the worst nightmares that I cannot run away from. And so these 10 games are just a few of those many, many, many awful memories. So without further ado, starting off is going to be number 10, 2018 against Tennessee. Oh, and one more thing. There will only be one game per season on this list because otherwise it would be filled with like 2012, 2021, 2023. Awful, awful, awful losses that year. But instead, to make sure kind of round it out and talk about some of the games that maybe some people might not even be really familiar with, I'm going to be talking about one game per year. Stick to that. Same thing I did for the last video, do for this one as well. So without further ado, let's move on to number 10, Tennessee in 2018. Now, let me set the stage for you. 2017, we had coming off a great year. Unfortunately, kind of bad end of the season. But 2018, we're like, okay, we're losing a couple people, but we still should be good. And it started out kind of like lackadaisical. So by the time you get to the Tennessee game, the season isn't going the way that we were hoping it would go, but you're going against Tennessee. And coming into this game, Tennessee had lost 11 straight SEC games. Let me repeat that. 11 straight divisional games. They were awful. And we're coming in, we're at home, we usually do really well at home, and it was so awful to watch. It was like some of the most, like, it was like watching paint dry. It was so boring. It was the most boring game I've ever watched. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, we're going to lose this game because there's so many mistakes that happen in the game. So many mistakes, so many turnovers, so many just bad plays, bad play calling as well. As any Gus Bus truth would also know, there's a lot of times that Gus Malzahn just could not get out of his own way. This is one of those times. And we're sitting here watching Tennessee, who, for all intents and purposes, has had like an awful couple of years, finally get their win. And we're just sitting there like, what the heck just happened? It was such a demoralizing loss because I'm getting clowned on by Alabama fans because, oh, you lost Tennessee, and also the fact that we broke their losing streak. And it was awful. Absolutely horrendous loss because it was just like, showed how dead our program still was, even though we were hopeful that 2017 would be that bounce back year for us. And it wasn't. Moving on to number 9. And now this one, it's kind of self-explanatory. 2012 was an awful year for us. Absolutely embarrassing, like, amount of, all the drama that came from that year. There was a whole bunch of speculation about, like, racism that was going on. There was a whole bunch of stuff that was going on with, like, a lot of the team players, the veterans versus the young guys, and them clashing as well. So 2012 was an awful year. 3-9. Let me repeat that. 3-9 was the record of that season. But it was capped off by the Iron Bowl in 2012. And Trey Mason, he actually got his 1,000 yards, but that's the only silver lining of that game because it was 49-0. 49-0. We got absolutely boat raced by Alabama on their way to another national championship. So not only do we have to watch as our season crumbled before our eyes, but then we had to watch Alabama win back-to-back national championships in that year. 3 out of the 4 years without us. So, like I said, it was absolutely abhorrent to see because I was just like, where do we go from here? Like, where do we go from here? And it just so happened that the next year's 2013 that lifted us up, thankfully, out of that just monstrous, disastrous game of Iron Bowl 2012. Moving on to number 8. Now, this one, I don't know if it's more if people just don't really remember or people don't talk about it enough, but it got played multiple times over and over and over again. All the ESPN kind of stuff that you see, the CBS kind of stuff that you would see, it'd be the same as they play over and over and over again because, and people just, like, oh, it's just a play. But I got reminded of it all the time. And if you know what I'm talking about, 2007 against LSU, Demetrius Byrd against Gerard Powers. Going in to 2007, Auburn was coming off of back-to-back really good win seasons. They had 2005, 2006, and 2007 we had high expectations. Now, obviously, 2007 was a crazy year in general. LSU ends up winning the national championship that year. And going to the game, LSU had already lost. We had 2 losses as well. We only had 1 loss in the SEC. We had everything in front of us. And we led late going in. We were up. And unfortunately, LSU starts driving down the field. And I started to get a little nervous. Like I said, I'm young. I'm really young at this point in time. And I start to get this feeling of like, we're going to find a way to lose because it's just how Tiger Stadium is. And they get all the way down there. The clock continues to run down. And then with about 4 seconds left to go, Matt Flynn finds Demetrius Byrd in the back of the end zone over Gerard Powers, Gerard Powers, shout out to you, man. Like, I loved you growing up, watching you as your journey going to NFL. But seeing that play replayed all the time, and if you, like I said, you'll see it behind me. You see that play, you might recognize it now. You might not know where it was from, but you might recognize that play because it played all the time on college football promos growing up. So I had to be reminded of that play so many times. But 2007 was another awful year for us because of the tempered expectations from where we were and how the season panned out. But that game, it signified like something was up with LSU. Let me give you a little tidbit. Outside of 2021, when Auburn beat LSU in LSU, since 1999, we have not won in LSU. Not one in Tiger Stadium. Death Valley. Never won in there. Outside of 1999. It is the cigar curse, and if you look it up, it's real. We find some way to lose the game. 2017 was also an awful loss too. I wanted to mention that in there too. But Tiger Stadium got some kind of voodoo when we go down there. Same as how coming to Jordan Hare, some kind of voodoo too. It's a great stadium though. I'll give you credit though. Great stadium, but I hate playing in that stadium because we never win outside of one time in my lifetime. So, moving on to number 7. Now, number 7, this one in particular, it was a signifying of like this season just isn't meant to be. And it was one of those where it's like a demoralizing loss where it's like, you're hopeful, you're high going into this. You were hopeful going into the season because you're coming off of the 2013 year. You just made it to the national championship game. You're bringing a lot of people back, and your offense is clicking. Your offense is doing really well. 2014 against Texas A&M. Texas A&M in 2014 wasn't really necessarily the best. Obviously, they were reeling after losing Johnny Manziel, and we were coming in. We still had everything in front of us. Obviously, had the Iron Bowl along the way. We were hopeful that we could still have an outside shot of making it to the college football playoff. Now, would it have happened? Probably not, but we still had an outside shot. And I just want to preface this: Reese's Mukes loved him to death. Nick Marshall loved him to death. But that fumble right there was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life because I was just like, no, we were so close. And we had so many opportunities to just win the game, but we couldn't. We just found ways to lose. And it was so embarrassing. It was so demoralizing because it was just like, we had a chance to win this game. We had a chance to go into the Iron Bowl potentially, and let's see if we can beat Alabama, and we almost did. That was a 55-44 game, which was a crazy game in itself. But that Texas A&M game was so demoralizing because it was just like we were so close, and we were Auburn. We found a way to lose, even when we had the game in our hands. We found a way to lose. So 2014 Texas A&M was absolutely abhorrent to watch, and it was basically the end of what would be our season, which would be a very disappointing season at that. Next up is number 6. Now, number 6, this one, the reason why this one is so high is because it has started a streak that I cannot run away from. That is a 2017 SEC championship game. And the reason why this one is so much more demoralizing is because we were a 2-loss team going into the SEC championship game. We were ranked number 2. Let me repeat that. We were a 2-loss team ranked number 2 because in the previous weeks, we had beaten Georgia, who was number 1. We had beat Alabama, who was number 1. We go into that game having to go against Georgia one more time. And unfortunately, when you try to play someone twice, usually it doesn't go in your favor. And especially because we were going into the game kind of banged up. I don't want to make excuses, but it is true. Kerryon Johnson came a little bit banged up. But we just didn't show up to play. And so watching the SEC championship game, knowing we were so close to making the college football playoff, and then just seeing we get absolutely just boat raced by Georgia, completely dominated. And it starts on the streak that since 2017, we have not beat Georgia. Let me repeat that. Since 2017, we have not beaten Georgia. I hope we beat them this year, but there's no telling. And I am very concerned because it's starting to not be as big of a rivalry anymore because we just can't win. We are right now the Tennessee to Alabama. You know, that long stretch where Tennessee just couldn't beat them. We're in that little rut right there, and it's very, very frustrating. This will not be the only Georgia loss on here, but it's the one that like signifies of like how far Auburn has fallen and how far Georgia has stayed consistent and stay at the top. That we have not been able to get up there, and it's super frustrating to watch. Moving on to number 5. This one is by far the next two, really, are by far some of my worst memories as a young Auburn fan. Like growing up, young Auburn fan, like I said, 2004, we were on the high, we went undefeated, but I kind of remember it, but I really remember 2005, 2006. So at number 5, 2006 against Georgia. Let me remind you that I said previously in that 2007 season, we had 2005, 2006 were great years, but we couldn't quite reach that next level. 2006 was one of our closest options of potentially going on a little bit of run, going to the SEC championship game, and maybe potentially, have an outside shot of making the BCS championship game. But that all went away because of one man, and that man is Matthew Stafford. Now, I've mentioned before, I'm a Carolina Panther fan, but because going into the NFL in 2011, I was considering either Panthers, Lions, or the Ravens because they had taken Auburn players that I really loved. I could not vote to go to the Lions because of my hatred of Matthew Stafford. Now, I respect him, but I hated him as a kid because in 2006, we're coming in. Georgia is coming off of a lot of they were like a losing streak as well. They weren't very good, and we're just like, you know what? We're good. We've already beaten Florida. We've already beaten the potential SEC East team. We're already looking pretty good. Obviously, a loss early in the season against Arkansas is not looking too well, but we've got everything in front of us. We're going to do great. And then 2006 Georgia, Matthew Stafford breaks out for I think he ran for 60 something yards. He was throwing all over the place. I think he had close to 300 yards. Like I said, it was so baffling to watch because our defense was really good that year, and we just could not stop this man. We could not stop him. And I know he was a highly regarded quarterback and whatnot, but it was so frustrating to watch because I'm like, what are we doing? I'm reviewing film back in my head because I can't get that out of my mind. I can't get it out of my mind. And I was so furious as a young kid. I was like, I hate this man. Now I've grown to love him because I respect what he is and what he's done. But it took a lot. It took a lot for me to not hate Matthew Stafford. So, in 2006, he became my mortal enemy. And as of now, I respect him and hope that he has his last little hurrah in the NFL. As I mentioned before, Auburn had a really good run from 2004, 2006. 2004, we got snubbed, unfortunately. And 2005, 2006, we just couldn't hit that next hurdle to make it back and to be in that position. I already mentioned about 2006 and what happened there, but 2005 is one that's more puzzling. And as a young kid, I had to come to grips of this is what Auburn does. Auburn loses games that you cannot explain. But I'm going to try to explain how in the world this actually happened. So 2005 against LSU, as I mentioned before, LSU always causes problems when we're going down there in Tiger Stadium. And we have on our team one of the most accurate kickers in SEC history and NCAA history, and John Vaughn. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this, and the reason why I wanted you to listen here right now, the most accurate kicker in SEC history and NCAA history. So explain to me in 2005 why John Vaughn went 1 for 6 in field goals. I remind you, 1 for 6 in field goals when he's the most accurate kicker in NCAA, one of the most accurate kickers in NCAA history. Like I still can't come to grips with it. Even after it's been over 20 years, almost 20 years now, and I still can't believe it. Let me explain to you how many times we could have actually won this game. And if we win this game, we definitely go to the SEC championship game, and we go up against Georgia, who we had also beaten that year. So let me try to calm down a little bit, because like I said, I'm reviewing it back in my mind. But he misses his first field goal. It's like a 41-yard field goal. He misses his first one. That's fine. Okay. Then later on in the first half, he makes his first one, 26-yarder. So he's 50%. He's 50%. And it's a back and forth defensive game, still kind of in it. So it's like, it's okay. We're still fine. We're still in there. That's fine. And then, like I said, it's like 7.5. It's a defensive game. And then he misses a 54-yard field goal, which is understandable. It's like, you know what? That's a little bit long field goal. It makes sense. Then he missed a 37-yard field goal. About like 11 minutes left to go in the game to kind of put us up some more points. And then also he missed like a 40-something-yard field goal to win the game, potentially win the game, but that didn't happen. And then to add more salt into the wound, not only did he have a chance of putting us up by 2 scores, not only did he have a chance of winning the game, but in overtime, LSU scored a field goal. And it was our turn. He went 1 for 6, and his last one he missed. And can I explain to you how frustrated I was? You might be able to see it on my face, but I can't explain it. I can't. How is one of the most accurate kickers that we've ever seen in my lifetime miss 5 field goals? One is a little bit difficult, like a 50-something yarder, but the other ones are makeable field goals. Auburn's going to Auburn. That's the best way to put it. And guess what? The next 3 are definitely Auburn's going to Auburn. So if you want to see me kind of go into crazy town, just stick on by, because guess what? It's going to happen. It's going to happen, and it's starting to happen right now. So sit back and get ready to see some of the most inexplicable reasons to lose a football game. Now, going into number 3, I think the best way to describe this is I feel for Falcons fans. Now, I'm a Panthers fan, so I used to clown Falcons fans a lot about their 28-3. And then karma has a way of, what comes around goes around kind of thing. And 2021 was an awful season for Auburn, but there's one game in particular that really signifies how low someone can actually get. And this is one of the worst experiences I've ever experienced in my life, being in person. I have never left a game early, but I considered it this game. We were up 28-3, Auburn versus Mississippi State in 2021 against Will Rogers, and, the air raid offense and all that kind of stuff. And at first it was 28-3. It was not even into the second. It was had about a couple more minutes left to go in the second quarter. And me and my friends were thinking, this game is kind of boring. Do we want to go? I was like, do we want to head on out? And they were like, nah, we're sick for a little bit. And then Mississippi State scores right before halftime, so make it 28-10. And we're like, it's no problem. Not a problem. We were at 28-3, and we let them score and score and score and score and score, and then also score to the point where they had 40 unanswered points. 40. And I had to sit there and watch as my 2 friends who were Alabama fans somehow found Mississippi State fans in the student section and were just having the jolliest of times, because they got to sit and watch as we crumbled where we had everything in front of us that season. In 2021, yes, we had lost to Texas A&M the previous week, but we also had beaten Ole Miss, and we had everything in front of us. All we had to do was win out, and we would be the representation for the SEC West. It was Mississippi State, South Carolina, and then Alabama. With Bo Nix at our side, I felt confident that we could actually have a competitive game. In the Mississippi State game, as we're trying to make our way back into this game, we score, but then you know what happens? Bo Nix breaks his ankle. That's right. Bo Nix, his last play at Auburn before he transfers, because so many toxic Auburn fans were the absolute worst. And I'm so happy that he left. I'm happy that he left because he got to be better at Oregon. It sucks to say as an Auburn fan, because I was a big fan of Bo, but it makes so much sense that he left. But this is all. It feels so awful that this was his last game as an Auburn fan, but as an Auburn player, Bo breaking his ankle. But not only does Bo get hurt, but then you have Anders Carlson on a onside kick. He tears his ACL. So not only did we lose our quarterback this game, we lose a 28-3 lead, but we also lost our kicker. And the worst part about this game is the legacy that it left. We had everything on the line. We had everything in front of us. South Carolina, we barely lose against South Carolina because TJ Finley absolutely was horrid. And also Mike Boba cannot call plays, especially a 4th and 1 play, to save his life. Sorry, Georgia fans. And in the Alabama game against Bryce Young, our defense is playing amazing, and we almost beat them, leading 10-3. I repeat, we almost beat them 10-3. We probably could have scored way more points with Bo Nix. Definitely. And then we let Bryce Young drive down the field, and they end up winning in the 4th overtime. So, when I say that the 2021 Mississippi State game was one of the worst experiences I've experienced in my life at that moment, but also what it led to, that is the reason why this one is in 3rd place. Because of, it's just amalgamation of everything that could possibly go wrong. But it is not anywhere near as bad as the first 2 on this list. Now, going into number 2, this is my final game as an Auburn student. Going into this game, we had not beaten any of our rivals, but we were on the cusp of finally beating Alabama. In 2023, Gravedigger. Now, when I say Gravedigger, I mean the Iron Bowl, but if you know the name Gravedigger, you know exactly what happened. So, going to this game, we need to win. We're hoping that, we can kind of knock Alabama out of the college football playoff like we did in 2019. And this whole entire year just has been absolutely awful. 2023, we had so many tight chances of potentially winning games. Georgia, Ole Miss, but then we find ways to lose. But in the Iron Bowl, it was looking good. It was looking really good. And we were the best team. But at the end of the day, Alabama's going to have to drive down the field. And then, 4th and forever, it's not that much time. I think 3 seconds remaining. And me and my friends are getting ready to storm the field. We're like, it's happening. We're finally beating Alabama on the last game that we're ever going to see as an Auburn student. We're going to be able to rush the field, and we're going to be able to have that for the rest of our lives. And then Gravedigger happens. And I can just remember seeing Jalen Milroe just running back and forth, have forever time to throw because we decided to rush 2. Why? I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why we only rushed 2. We rushed 2, have everybody back. Oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then he just throws it at Isaiah Bond. And then Isaiah Bond pushes off a little bit, doesn't get called for it, but I'm not going to blame him. But catches the ball, and my heart drops. And Luke is over here, which you know anything about the Gridiron Gurus, and me and Luke have a partnership. He's an Alabama fan, and I just see Luke, who is just so excited, but he is also scared for his life because he is surrounded by Auburn fans that have just experienced one of the worst experiences in your life. where it is a 99.99999% chance that you're going to win this game. That we don't see this happen. You don't see fourth and forevers on the goal line, final play like this, where someone's just gonna, oh, we're just gonna do two people. Let's see what happens. Not even a QB spy, nothing like that. No, we're just gonna let it have all day to throw, and then he just throws it to the back of the end zone, and then Isaiah Belmont catches it, and then he's like, oh, give me the Heisman, give me the Heisman. You didn't deserve the Heisman that year. I'm getting very, very frustrated because I'm just like remembering the game, remembering the feeling that I had, and I remember saying it. I remember saying, and I feel so bad about saying it that I was like, oh, we're gonna be able to rush the field because I felt like I jinxed us. At the moment when I had like the pit in my stomach, just being able to see like we just lost this game. Somehow, some way, we lost the game, and we're sitting there for forever because we just feel we cannot get up. I'm like, me and my friends are sitting there just depressed because I don't know how I can move when I feel like my legs are dead. I feel like my soul is dead. I feel like I've just almost experienced the jubilation of we are going to be able to do something that no one had, not a lot of people get to do, and that is rush the field as a student of the college you're attending. And then it just goes away. And now Alabama fans have not necessarily their kick six because of what it meant, but like something that like you can say kick six, but then they can say gravedigger, and you feel so much worse. Just as much as they felt about kick six, which maybe over time the gravedigger won't hurt as bad. But man, in that moment, I couldn't explain. I couldn't explain what happened. I couldn't explain. I literally was like, "This is Auburn." This is Auburn. We find a way to lose. And I think that perfectly sums up what it meant to be at Auburn when I was at Auburn from 2020, 2024. I didn't go to a single game in 2024 after that Iron Bowl because I couldn't. I couldn't pull myself to go to another game. I was so devastated by that game because, and I was like, I don't want to pay for tickets anymore. I watched the game, but I feel so dead inside, and so I didn't buy tickets. And so that one is the worst experience that I've had at an actual game, but is not number one on this list. Number one on this list is obvious if you know what I've said before. Is the 2014 BCS National Championship game against Florida State. Now, the 2013 season was incredible. It was otherworldly. Coming off that 2012 season where everything went wrong, went 3-9, and so much chaos that was happening in our program. Coming in 2013, when we go on this run, we beat Alabama, we beat Georgia off of like these miracle plays, and you're just like, we're the Cinderella team. This is what's going to happen. We're going to make it all the way to the national championship game. We're going to do what we need to do, and we're going to come out on top. And we beat Missouri, who was a really great team that year, going into the SEC championship game, then going to the national championship game. And I felt like we were a little bit underdog, but I felt, hey, you know what? If anything happens, I feel very good about what happens this season. But I did not prepare myself for how we would lose the championship game. Obviously, everyone knows the one play, the Kelvin Benjamin, who unfortunately would become a Carolina Panther. But the throw by Jameis Winston is what everybody knows. But not a lot of people remember how it got to that play. So I'm going to run through and explain exactly how Auburn was just like Auburn and found a way to lose this game. Now, going into it, evenly matched. We're the underdog. They're the undefeated team, and we come out to a commanding lead. I'm talking about we end up leading at like 21-3, which is incredible against an undefeated team, against the talent that Florida State had. Like, just look at Florida State's roster in 2013. It is an absolute stacked roster, especially of college players. Maybe not Jameis Winston in NFL, but like in college, absolutely outstanding player. But then Florida State, starts to kind of make it a little bit of a game. But as they're starting to try and make their comeback, there is one play in particular that does not get talked about enough. And the reason why I wear this get up is because of the fact that in my skits that I do for the NFL, I have the Bears, and the Bears are wearing this jersey because it's kind of like this shirt because it's similar to their kind of colors. And Cody Parkey is, unfortunately, for a lot of Bears fans, a little cliff note in what could have been an amazing season in 2018 because of the double doink. Well, wouldn't you know it, in 2013, Cody Parkey misses a 30-something yard field goal that would have put us up even more. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because it is so incredibly important for what ends up happening in this game. So I want to specify it right now before we continue on. So don't forget about Cody Parkey missing a field goal because I definitely did it. So we missed that field goal. Florida State kind of is like, in a little bit of a rut, and they decide to go on fake punt, and they get it, and they get the momentum going. They start going a little bit of a run. I'm like, okay, well, they're going a little run, but it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. We're good. We're going to halftime. We're going to the third quarter. Still like a back and forth, kind of game. Still defensive battle in the third quarter after coming out of halftime. We're still in the lead. We're fine. And then Whitfield decides to go on that kickoff return for a touchdown. And obviously, if you've seen the footage, you've seen the Auburn player pulling his hammy basically. But when that happened, I was just like, no. I was like, because this happened before. It's happened multiple times. We just find a way to lose, and I'm like, this can't happen. I was like, we were leading by so much. We had the momentum, and then we just let Florida State just continue on down the path of hey, you know what, Florida State, just go on ahead, win the national championship. We don't care. And so I just remember the feeling this sense of just in the pit of my stomach. I was like, this is abhorrent. I don't know why does this keep on happening to us? Why? After 2012, after the worst season we've ever had, and then this year you give us this year, who has been one of the best things that ever happened to us, and then we start to lose this way. I was so devastated, but that's not how it ends. No, it's much worse. Auburn, then with not that much time left, starts driving down the field, and then we score. But we score way too early, and we're up by 4. Now, to remind you, we're up by 4 at this point in time. There's about a minute and some change, minute 50 or minute 40, something left. Florida State, I can't remember if they have the timeouts or not exactly. But what I do remember is thinking back in that game, if only Cody Parkey had made that field goal. He made another field goal earlier to make it, that 4-point game. But if he had made it earlier, it would have been a touchdown game instead of being a 4-point game. So I want to mention that once more. As we go down the field, Florida State is just driving. James Winston's finding open receivers. We're not tackling well. Just down the field. And then we get to the goal line. And my anxiety, I'm glued to the television. I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I was like, please. I was like, just find some way to stop them. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because we had a elderly woman in our church that was a big Florida State fan. That I was like, I'm sorry that I don't really want her to be happy right now, but I want to be happy as an Auburn fan. And when Jameis Winston threw that ball to Kelvin Benjamin, I cried. I cried so hard, because I was like, we just lost this game. We lost the national championship that we had in the bag. We had the momentum. We had everything on our side. And Auburn, just being Auburn, found a way to lose. And it's still in a lot of Auburn's minds, because, we won 2010, which is by far one of my greatest memories I've ever had. But being able to cap off that 2013 season with the win in the national championship game would have gone a long way for us, and able to say, yes, we had the worst season we've ever had in 2012, but we came back, we won, and there's still that sense of 2013 was this amazing year, big season turnaround and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it is such a devastating loss. and I still can't explain some of the stuff that happened in that game. Um, I same as I think I have the hatred for Matthew Stafford. I have the same exact hatred for Jameis Winston, and I understand like Jameis Winston in the NFL. A lot of people are still like, oh, he's a goofy guy. I still can't get behind Jameis Winston. I like him as a player. I like him as like gunslinger that he is, but just remembering the throw that he threw to Kelvin Benjamin, just you will remember that for the rest of your life. And then the worst thing about it is that the Panthers end up drafting Kelvin Benjamin the very next draft. Like I not only do not only do I have to relive the same exact play over and over and over and over again as the last play, the last game-winning play from a BCS championship game before they go on to the playoffs. But I have to see this man in the Carolina Panther blue and black, and I have to see him, have a decent rookie year and then be an absolute bust for us. And it was hard. It was hard to watch. It really was. And you might be able to see from my expression, but I wanted to talk about the Auburn wins first because this obviously is the easiest thing to do. But Auburn has had so many devastating losses that I couldn't even talk about a lot of them. Like, I didn't talk about New Mexico State, even though I had a weird feeling about that game to begin with when we came into it, because I had this vivid memory. I don't remember what exactly it was, but on the video board, I can clearly see that Auburn is talking about some like, if with this win we have da 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 da, and I remember what kind of record it was. But I felt, and I might be, this might be some kind of Mandela effect, but I felt really bad about going into that New Mexico State game in 2023, when Diego Pavia just absolutely just lights us up, and we lose. I didn't feel great going into that game because I knew people were downplaying how good New Mexico State was that game. Well, it was that season. And so that one obviously was not picked for the 2023 season. The 2021, you could have talked about the Iron Bowl, but that Mississippi State game was just it was just next level. It's just like one of the most demoralizing losses. 2006, you probably could have said Arkansas win. A Gus Malzahn led offense with Darren McFadden at the helm absolutely just boat raced us and just ran all over us in 2006. But that Georgia game, just I remember it vividly because I thought we had every option to win and we didn't show up, and instead we got embarrassed by our rival. Um, going back on memory lane. This has been super duper painful. So hopefully you'll like this video, because I definitely didn't. I was dreading making this video for a long time. But I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Obviously, like I said, subscribe. I try to make skits about the NFL. I'm trying to do a little more college football. Obviously, SEC football is be more so down my league. But I'm going to be streaming college football games as well. So if you like what you see, you like my personality, just subscribe and come join some of the streams and watch some of the videos. Like I said, it's a fun little community that I've been able to create with just having YouTube. Don't have any kind of social media or anything like that outside of YouTube. And yeah. In the comments below, if you want to, you can also talk about some of the worst losses that either your college team or your NFL team has done, because that's what's next for me is NFL. I'll have the same as a kind of video going out where I have talked about the best Panthers wins and some of the worst Panthers losses of my fandom, which started in 2011. And I'm not, I am not ready for that game either. So ready for those videos either. So hopefully you enjoyed this one, because like I said, I just feel awful right now. I feel absolutely horrible, and I'm recording this as getting ready to watch the Auburn versus Baylor game, and it's start of a new season, and I'm hopeful once again, but at the same time, I am ready to get my heart broken once again, as always. So without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.